Welcome to the workshop. Today, I'm turning the wing of my table saw into a router table. Let's get to it. I'll be using this template, which I bought from Incra, and is sized so it matches the router lift plate. I'll be using the table saw fence to square up the template so that the plate sits nice and square. And here I'm just tracing out that template onto the table saw so I know where things will go. And here I'm just taking the interior measurements of the router lift so that when I cut the hole in the table saw wing, I know what to avoid. And now I'm transferring those measurements onto the table so I know the size of the hole and how much I can leave as a lip for the router lift to rest on. And now, because the width of that hole is going to be a little wider than those support beams allow, I've got to bump those out by an inch or two on each side. Now here we're back on top of the table, and I'm drilling holes in each corner of the layout I did earlier. That'll let me get my jigsaw blade in there in a moment. So you can see here, I'm making those cuts to actually open up the hole. You'll notice I'm leaving little slots. It's a little hard to see here, but I'm leaving tabs uncut so that I still have that centerpiece to rest my router on later. Now here I'm using the blue tape trick with CA glue and accelerator to hold the template down. Now I'm setting the depth of the router bit to the thickness of the template plus the thickness of the router lift base plate. That'll let me cut just the right depth through the template with a little bit of clearance. And now I am going through and cutting the first pass out of that template. So I've got a template cutting bit here which has a bearing on the top, and it lets me trace around the template with my router and get right up to that line. Now I'm pulling the template away so I can get at the remainder of the waist with the router. And here you can see I've got clean edges, but a ways to go on the waist in the middle. You can see how leaving that center section in by leaving those tabs when I went through with the jigsaw gives me a spot to rest the base plate of my router before I come back and cut those tabs away. Now you can see the router lift slides in very clean. We have a really nice fit there. That's just getting the template from the manufacturer gives you those results. And now I'm just going through the process of setting the router motor into the lift and getting it all aligned, set the height properly. Once that's done, pop the whole assembly into the table and start getting it leveled using those screws that let you make micro adjustments to keep the table flush with the plate. Now I'm assembling the dust cabinet. So this lets me hook up my vacuum underneath the router table, and it pulls the dust down and away from the workpiece while I'm routing. This is really great to keep dust out of the shop, especially with generally dusty operations like the router. And now I am mounting the power switch that I'm going to use to turn the router on and off. Since it's going to be in that case, I won't have access to its own power switch. So here I've got some plywood that I made into a corner bracket, and then this is just a power switch from Rockler that'll let me turn the router on from above the table. And there's the router plate in the wing, ready to go. You can see here I'm trying it out, doing a template cut with the template on the bottom of the workpiece there and a flush trim bit. And I'll clean up what's left with a top bearing bit once I change that out. So here you can see me changing the bit. I'm going from a 1/2 inch bit to a 1/4 inch bit, so I've got to change the collet. I really like that this router lets me use multiple collet sizes. And as you can see, it's pretty easy on this table to switch the bits. And so now I'm just cleaning up that waist with a 1/4 inch top bearing flush trim bit. Overall, I'm really happy I put the router table into my table saw. It's definitely safer for some operations, and it's made me much more productive than using a handheld router.